if I'm sure that as you get into kind of the conversation here, as we sort of talk about the items today, you'll have questions. And as questions come to you and you'd like to ask, please use the function that is there with this Microsoft team to be able to type in your questions, and then we'll take them as they come. So listen, what can I say? I mean, this has been a really bizarre and interesting time for everybody, and it's been stressful and taxing for you and our students. And all I can say is how grateful I am for your professionalism, your competence, and the care that you've demonstrated in a time that is completely unprecedented for this generation and for now. And we're fully aware of the anxiety and the stress and the fear that is surrounding the COVID-19. And the earthquake yesterday probably doesn't settle our feelings any more than that. But we also know that people are concerned not only about your personal welfare and well-being of your family and friends, but about childcare, about work situations. And we want to reassure you, I want to reassure you that Snow College is going to have the maximum flexibility in handling our work situation with you. In fact, because that we actually are coming up on spring break this next week, we are asking anybody who can conceivably work at home to stay at home. It's spring break. We're going to have very low volumes of students. And so by and large, and for all intents and purposes, the campus is closed to the public. Now, we do have to keep some essential services going because we do have some students that are living on campus, our international students, and some students who have chosen to stay here even through spring break. We need to continue to help serve them. But as you work with your supervisor and as you work with others, stay home if you can. This will not impact your vacation or your time off. This is not going to impact your pay in any way. This is the spirit of Snow supporting each other in a time that is really quite desperate. I just returned this morning from an IHC board meeting. I serve on a local board here, and I came away actually quite encouraged, but also sober. There's also some sobering information that I feel like we need to share. One is that on the positive front, the system here in Sanpete County is as prepared as they can be. They feel very confident that they are going to have the type of facilities and the healthcare workers definitely in the short term. The problem is that this is a new situation. No one has faced this virus before. We're looking at the experiences of other countries. What we do know is over the next 11 days is really going to be crucial as to whether we can handle and manage as a county the type of cases that come in. So if there is only one thing that I took away from this morning's board meeting was you cannot overstate the importance of social distancing. It is simple as that. In addition to washing your hands, in addition to sort of not touching your face, it is really crucial that we have some social separation. But at the same time, as we sort of practice responsible social distancing, in the words of, I really liked Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson at her press conference yesterday, where she said that while we continue to practice social distancing, let's practice social grace with each other, patience, and charity. Really, the most vulnerable among us is who we're trying to protect. And these are typically 18, 19, and 21-year-olds. And it's really, people that are under 70, the lethality of this is quite low. But the danger really is that we can all be carriers. And in many cases, it's asymptomatic. There are no symptoms. And this is where our young people, I think we need to really encourage our young people to take seriously this social distancing. We see on campus as we try and send our messaging about social distancing, we still see students and others congregating. And I know this is a delicate issue because while on the one hand, we are trying to protect the physical safety and well-being of students, we also have to consider the mental health and well-being. And often we are social beings and we need to have that interaction. But for the next 11 days or so, we really should be practicing much more vigilance on that front. Now, so I'd like to sort of outline maybe three major objectives for today's virtual open forum. One is really to have a sort of a serious and open conversation about COVID-19 and that as it relates to Snow College and our communities, and how that relates to our work. How do we interact with each other? And I have key professionals and colleagues in the room here that as questions come up that we can try and address. And if we have time, we will talk about the legislative session. We'll also talk about where we've come down on tuition this year, but we really think those are probably secondary and tertiary issues relative to really the more important and confronting issue of COVID-19. I feel very confident that we have a team in place with an incident command team. We actually meet twice each day at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. because this is fast moving, it's quickly moving. And so we get together that quickly to update our protocols, to make sure that we're messaging, getting the messaging right, that we're coordinating with our understanding from the CDC and from the state and other health agencies so that we're giving you as much up-to-date information as we have. And so we'll talk about the incident command structure and those that are section chiefs that are responsible over operations, logistics, academics, planning and reporting as we've divided out sort of the key responsibilities of our campus. So with that, looks like we have about 163 attendees at the moment. And it looks like we do have some questions, but as the questions sort of kind of emerge, we will essentially answer them as we can. We can stay on. This is one of the great things about this particular format is that people can stay on as long as they want. We're willing to stay and engage you as much as you can. Let me ask one question of the audience of whether you're hearing us okay, whether the Microsoft team is coming through, or whether there are any particular technical problems that we have. Looks like we have someone saying he can't hear anything, and I'm curious as to what we might suggest. We have a great technical team, and by the way, kudos to our IT team for helping us move so quickly in this new format. And in that same spirit, I really want to thank our faculty who care so deeply about teaching and learning, and that this adjustment has not been without anxiety and some trepidation. And it has been incredibly gratifying to see how you're helping each other, and how that you've been willing to, in being able to keep the continuity of learning going, that we use this this new format for the time being. So any suggestions on the person who can't hear? So check your speakers and make sure that you're not muted. It looks like we do have, good advice. Don't bump the table. So you think there's another earthquake. We don't want to do that. But let me just, the sound and video is great. Some are saying. Good. Thank you for your feedback on that. So let's take a couple of questions, and as the questions emerge where I'll be over my head on maybe the answers, then we can bring in smarter people than I am. But one of the questions that we might have is, what is the long-term plan for fall if classes need to go online? This is a very good question, and the short answer is we're not sure just yet in terms of the horizon of this particular infection. Some are saying it could be well into fall. At this point, you probably saw that we have at this point postponed commencement. We're thinking this will go well into March, and it may well go into summer. So we are doing some initial planning if we were to have a transition of summer, so that we can continue to have students take summer classes online, and there may be reason to think about and plan for fall as well, but we're sort of watching that closely. We have a question here. Is there a chance that that all students will be sent home? Are other institutions doing that? Yes, there is that chance, especially over the next week or two. But we're kind of paying close attention to instructions from the state on this. Other institutions are encouraging that. But we also have to recognize that there's some students that we can't leave stranded here. So those students that are here, whether they're international students or for whatever reason, we want to make sure that they have shelter and support. But for the most part, we're encouraging students to go home and try to access the services there. I wanted to announce that we also, over at least the spring break, that we will be closing the library. And but that will only be for sort of the public and for students. We will be using the library for our faculty trainings, and we'll work that out and give you some instructions. But we want to make sure that that where we can, that we're definitely sort of shutting down opportunities for students and others to sort of get together and inadvertently pass on this infection. Another question is, can we meet businesses at their location if we need help with disaster funding, since they can't come to us?
That's what SBDC.
So our Small Business Development Center.
Probably Farm and Ranch Management.
So I'm open to sort of additional sort of help here on this. My feeling is that probably the answer is yes. As long as we kind of hold to what is called the rule of 10, right? And I would say over the next 11 days that rule ought to be even less than that. Make sure that that we're staying within, staying away from 3 to 6 feet from each other. I think that's just good sense. Is there a summer school plan at this point? No, is the short answer, but we'll be working on that over the next few days. On-campus housing is not closed. we are keeping that open, especially for those students who need to stay. Other questions? While we're kind of getting some other questions, let me introduce our incident commanders, Derek Walk and Stacy Walker. Derek Walk and Stacy Taylor. Sorry, Stacy. To describe really what the campus has done in terms of emergency preparedness, the types of communication structures that we have put together, and what are the types of topics that we discuss each morning and each afternoon. So Derek and Stacy.
Well, so as you hopefully all know, we are, Stacy and I share the responsibility of emergency management for the campus. And for this incident, we've been designated as the incident commanders in this. We both fall into that role pretty well because this is not a police action, so it doesn't involve my normal duties so much. So I can spend time as incident commander in this. And same with Stacy, it's not a Title IX situation. Plus, she's a good fit because she's done a lot of research on this subject and has a large knowledge base. But we have put together a structure for incident command, and I believe it's on the website. If someone wants to go view it, they're welcome to go view it. But we've got Stacy and I that work closely with the president and on a lot of decision making and stuff, and we do this with what we call section chiefs. So we've got Carson, VP Carson Howell as the operations section chief. Rob Nielsen is our section chief over logistics. Wayne Bushman is our section chief over planning, and Steve Hood, along with Melanie Jenkins, is our section chiefs over academics. They all have specialized knowledge and people that work with them that can help provide services and the needs of our campus community a lot better than Stacy and I. So we basically are overseeing this and just helping get them the either the information or the things they need to be successful in this. So our main goal in this is to continue to provide education to our students and to do our part in reducing the spread of this virus. So that's why you've seen the campaigns that we've made to reduce the numbers, like the rule of 10 that the president talked about, try to encourage people to wash their hands more regularly, keep that safer distance of 6 feet to help keep these things from spreading. Along with this, we've established a place online for those of you that travel. We're asking you to report back to us the places that you've traveled and if you're showing any signs or symptoms, so that we can do our part to help make our campus safer, depending on the type of exposures that you may have encountered while you've been away from campus. You want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I think you're doing a great job. Keep it up. We got grit, we got determination. That's what it takes in these types of things. So obviously prevention, self-isolation, but also a lot of kindness and care, because I know that's what my colleagues are about. I know the students are here and have the same type of value system. So I just want to say we so appreciate it. Thank you for all the work you're doing. And then who do we turn it over to next?
Let's actually have Craig Rob Nielsen talk about logistics. Let's just go through some of the section chiefs.
Okay.
So we're going to introduce Rob Nielsen in this particular capacity for this event. He's actually our logistics section chief officer.
Thank you. We're talking mostly about cafeteria, housing, some of the things like that. So questions that come up, what the current situation with our cafeteria is. And we're following the state guidelines. There will be no in-house dining. The food is available to be picked up. So we'll be practicing a procedure where you'll come, get your order, take your food, and you're free to take that and go. We can't have in-house dining anymore until April 1st, so we'll reevaluate that. With housing remains open, and we're encouraging people to make that decision on their own. If you choose to leave and check out through the proper funds, then we will have a $175 refund. Plus, you will also get your traditional $100 deposit back, which you normally wouldn't get if you checked out early. So we are working with housing and our students as far as taking care of them from the food and housing perspective. Are there any other questions for logistics?
What about athletics? You want to talk about athletics?
So currently, the NJCAA has canceled all spring events, all practices, all games, all championships following the NCAA model. So our athletes will not be on campus for the next couple of weeks. It's been canceled for the entire spring. So all spring sports will not be had. If you do have a spring sport athlete and you're concerned, those athletes that are doing spring sports will regain this year of eligibility. So we'll kind of have a 3-class team next year for softball. Our current sophomores, our freshmen, and their incoming freshmen. So we will have a 3-class team next year, which will be unusual. The other sports will not be practicing or participating in anything during the summer or during the spring. The one change to that is we continue to have esports. Esports is a growing sport. The NJCAA is able to continue sports, and our esports team is doing very well. They did well in the fall, and they're still continuing to do well. So they'll have limited practice opportunities, again, following the rule of 10, and be able to compete esports. So we will be represented across the nation on esports. Anything
Can we
else?
talk a little about the PE center, like the fitness center, anything that we have?
We've closed the Horn Activity Center, and the new fitness center are closed. We're looking at that kind of as a case by case or week by week. So that will be closed for sure and through spring break. We'll reevaluate that on April 1st. For those people who have passes and are concerned about their passes, we will be working with you to either extend passes. We'll be happy to refund. We want you to be happy. We want you to use our facilities. So if you'd like to extend that pass, we'll be working with you to extend passes. If you've wanted something for the summer, things will be closed for the summer. With this change in graduation, the Horn Activity Center will be closed from April 20th through sometime in August, as we're redoing all of the mechanical, air conditioning. We're going to be replacing the bleachers and replacing the floor. So the Horn Activity Center, including the pool, which will also maybe drained and some work done in that, will be closed during the summer. So again, if you have a pass and you're concerned about that, we'll work with you on an individual basis. If you'll contact us at the Horn Activity Center, we'll take care of your passes and any questions you might have about that.
We're going to try a Jimmy Fallon format here for a second. And let me ask Provost Hood to join us. So here's what we're going to try and do is that you're going to hit so I can actually see the questions.
Oh, okay.
And all I can say, this won't be as funny as Jimmy Fallon, but so one of the questions we're getting, Provost, is what about refunds for because it's a different format? Are we considering any refunds for tuition and fees?
There is no doubt that what we're trying to do is keep the quality of teaching just as close to our face-to-face format as possible. But at the same time, we recognize that the delivery is not the same quality as it was when we were in a regular face-to-face situation. One student wrote in and said they're concerned about the quality of education. The faculty are all over this. They have been working on this now for a week. Even longer, actually, because they started to prepare for in the event of emergency beginning a couple of weeks ago. But they are going to do the best that they can to try to deliver synchronous classes where those will work. If it's can't be delivered synchronous, they'll do it asynchronously. And if they can't do that, well, they'll switch to some type of an online format. But if we won't be able to offer any refunds on the courses at this point because we still have a product in terms of the educational value that we're giving. And so we're going to do everything we possibly can to keep that as to the highest standards that we can under the circumstances.
Good. There was a question, a couple questions that came up, whether we would consider a pass-fail system as opposed to grades. What's our latest thinking on that?
That's not completely out of the question, but what we've encouraged faculty to do is to actually look right now at where the grades are that students have in the courses. In other words, looking at their grade books, seeing how students are performing now, and then trying to pitch and keep in mind that there is something of a guideline right now with where the GPAs are in the courses, and that if courses start to sag in terms of GPAs start to go down, that things that faculty are going to try different things to try to keep those grades up and to try to make assignments that would be more accessible to students and try to help keep those grade point averages up. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to be able to do that. However, it could be in some courses, and we have a curriculum committee that we can meet with on this and get advice from them. It could be that in a worst case scenario, we do have to change to some sort of a pass or not pass system for some courses. But right now we're not anticipating that, but we will be ready in the event that we have to do that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I also want to remind you that to continue to look at the snow.edu/coronavirus website for our general announcements. Everything is kind of very dynamic, as you can appreciate. So watch our webpage, make sure that you're looking at our FAQ sheet, our frequently asked question sheet that is updated constantly. So thank you so much for also the questions that you continue to ask, and so we appreciate. So keep them coming as you see fit. One of the questions that is coming up is about facilities and about what facilities will be open. So for all intents and purposes, really the campus will be closed to the outside. We will be keeping certain functions open, and we will identify what key and what kind of a skeletal crew needs to look like, especially over spring break. So give us, so we're practicing really kind of a lot more isolation over spring break than we would maybe even on March 30th. We'll have to see how that goes. But spring break just allows us to be able to be a lot more vigilant. So, what facilities will be open, we'll let you know about that through our website and communication. But for the most part, we're really encouraging people to not be on campus if you don't have to be. But if you have to be, then we'll work with you. Again, I know people are kind of really stressed out about whether, if they're not on campus, whether that affects their job performance or evaluations. Please don't worry about that. Everybody understands this is a situation that requires a lot of leeway and patience. One of the questions we have here is, how do pass-fail grades affect eligibility for things like athletics and financial aid? Do you have any sense then?
Yeah, generally pass-fail grades don't impact your GPA unless they're a fail. If they're a fail, then it counts as a 0. If it is a pass, then it is just not simply calculated into the GPA, but the credits count in terms of athletics and academics. And I just want to make sure with Director Nielsen, that's the case for athletics, right?
Yeah, they pass, but they consider them a C, so it really kind of hurts their eligibility.
Oh, okay. So for athletics, a pass counts, but it counts as a C. But for other academics, it's not figured into the GPA, just the credit hours are.
Steve, we're also being asked about IVC classes.
The question is, why are we still requiring synchronous meetings for IVC? These are extenuating circumstances. Students have finance, time, technology, and resource issues. This seems unnecessary.
Right. What we're trying to do on all classes is trying to keep the schedules the same as much as possible, so there's as little disruption in student lives as possible. So this means that instead of using the IVC technology, we're using Big Blue buttons so that more students can access that at home. The Big Blue button, though, however, does have a recording function. It takes about 3 hours for that recording function to upload. So after the class is over, students could access that at another time if they needed to. And that's true of all of our Big Blue Button classes. If you can't possibly attend at a particular time when the class normally meets, you can, there will be a recorded function and you can watch that. Keep in mind that it only lasts for 11 to 12 days though, so you'll need to keep up with your coursework.
Thanks, Provost Hood. Appreciate that. Let me ask Josh Hales to join us, especially from questions that we might have from employees. And one of the questions that we're seeing here is, while everybody that's a full-time staff or faculty, do not worry about your employment. I know that there's some sort of low-grade concern that this will somehow affect your jobs and employment and that sort of thing. Please be reassured, we are not receiving any indication from the state that that we need to be worried. Now, if you're an hourly employee, we're also going to be working with you as much as we can to find a way. If for some reason what you were doing as an hourly employee can't be done because of this, we are putting together really a clearinghouse where our supervisors can redeploy, right, hourly workers so that they can continue to work, so that we minimize the financial impact on them. And we're also asking sort of full-time faculty that if they are, if with the coronavirus really has impacted their ability to have get work done, that we find a way in which you can help other other departments on campus, meet some of the work demands because right now we're having kind of an imbalance across the campus on pressures of what we need to handle. So, but I wanted to reassure both full-time faculty and staff and our part-time that we're going to be working very hard, especially in the short to medium term, to make sure that your paychecks, your benefits are in place and remain unchanged. So, Josh, this does bring up, I think, a series of questions we're seeing about vacation time for staff. And why don't we take that? So, what is your sense about from HR questions, or how you answer in terms of the vacation time for staff?
Yeah, so I think the question was, where we're really encouraging people to stay home next week as much as possible. The question, I think, was, what does that do for vacation time? And really what we're going to do is those employees who can stay home next week, please stay home, no impact on your vacation. Now, there are still going to be some employees who we still need here to keep the lights on, to make sure everyone gets their paychecks, things like that. And so those employees we're going to give time in lieu. So everyone, again, we're trying to make sure everyone's treated equitably, while at the same time really making sure that we don't spread the virus.
But by the way, this reminds me of the meeting this morning with IHC. They really want to emphasize that to the extent that you try to use the telehealth system as much as you can, rather than going and showing up face to face. In many ways, they'll turn you away because they just don't want to have people in the same room, in the waiting room, kind of infecting each other. So they're saying that the telehealth system actually works quite well, and that you'll get to see a physician. They'll be able to have a conversation with you. But again, even if you're feeling sick at all, first, if there's any doubt, just stay home. And two, if you're sick, that doesn't mean you have COVID-19. And even if you do, eventually, some of us will get COVID-19, doesn't mean it's lethal. And so this is one of those things that you just have to keep in mind. There are many around even our valley here who may be carriers. So remember, social distance isn't just about that if you are feeling fine doesn't mean that you're not a danger potentially to others. One of the questions I see here, and just hang with me because we do have some other questions relative to our employees. There is a question about instruction and classes. So as announced, really all of our classes are going to be up and going March 30th. For you students out there, stay in touch with your faculty through Canvas, but we are trying to do our best in making sure that there isn't any further interruption to your learning. Our first and foremost responsibility has been to your health and the community's health, but we take very seriously also that as a very close second priority, though, is your learning. And so you have to understand that learning and the classes are in play. You have responsibilities for your education continuing after spring break. So make sure that you're managing your time well. If there are any students and faculty and staff who may need some help with some technology, we do have some limited checkout laptops that we could check out, and we have a system that we can distribute those. So if you don't currently have that, then let us see if we can help. As I understand it, the Big Blue Button is phone compatible, right? So I don't know if you need a laptop to necessarily work on Canvas, but if you do need some help with some mobile devices, we can try and help. All right, Josh, one of the other questions that we have really is, the passes that faculty and staff have paid for already in the Activity Center and others. How do we think about refunds or essentially extending a credit? What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I had to kind of twist Rob's arm to do this, but no, actually both of us feel like, if the Activity Center and the Athletic Center are closed, then employees and staff shouldn't pay for something that they're not going to have access to. So as far as the logistics of how that's going to work, we're still going to figure that out, but we'll either do a credit or give refunds. Yeah. So another question that has come up is what about student employment? Are student employees still going to be able to work when we come back from spring break on March 30th? And right now the answer is absolutely. Any student that has a job will still have a job when they come back. To the extent that maybe an office has to close or otherwise doesn't need quite the same staffing that they had before, we're going to find a way to reassign those student employees.
So I would say short of an order from the governor of shelter in place or something like that, we're going to continue to make sure that people find ways that they can continue to be productive and contributors to the campus. But remember, this is a dynamic thing. And so who knows, we may have instructions down the road that we actually have to sort of, quarantine the place. We do have plans in place on a quarantine protocol. If let's say that a student on campus does get, a positive, test positive, we do have plans in place in terms of protocols working with their families and whether we need to also find space here on campus. So we are working through that. So continue, as I mentioned before, and those that may have come a little bit later, make sure you're continuing to check our website, and we'll continue to give you messaging daily as we get information. So listen, thank you, Josh. We might bring you back as people continue. Keep those questions coming. We really appreciate this opportunity. Let me introduce, or as you know, Carson Howell is our Vice President for Finance and Administration, and also one of our section chiefs as it relates to operations. So one of the questions, there's several questions, Carson, that are being asked is about Wi-Fi. So one of the questions we have is as we shift more online, do we have the IT capacity to be able to absorb that kind of traffic?
Yeah, so I've been talking with IT quite a bit about that. The nice thing with Canvas and the classes with Big Blue Button, that actually hits the infrastructure network or Instructure network. So that one shouldn't impact our capability there. So as you go through classes and use Big Blue Button and Canvas, that shouldn't impact us. I know that there have been concerns about some Wi-Fi in student housing. I know that there was this last weekend, and we worked with IT over the weekend to get that up and running. If students are still experiencing spotty Wi-Fi, let us know. We monitor the app. We can get right on that and check it out. But a lot of that hardware has actually been replaced over this past year. So that we should be able to keep up with demand.
Terrific. There's a question about stores in the area closing. We have no indication that the food supply is going to be disrupted. I think with water and food, we're pretty confident that actually is a segment. What you may have heard, though, is the governor did shut down restaurants. And so there's some restaurants that have a kind of a takeout only or a drive-through, but in many cases, restaurants are going to be closed. We do have, as I understand, a bus that is continuing to go to Walmart for our students who might be a little bit transportation impaired. It looks like we have some Walmart limited hours now, so this is news to me. What do you know about that, Carson or Marcy or anybody?
So there may be limited hours on the grocery stores and for food, but the governor has said that it would be illegal for those stores to close. So while there may be some limited hours, and as you mentioned, we've got transportation to Walmart, but there's no concern that Walmart will be closing and the students will not have access to food.
So it looks like they are open from 7 to 8:30. So 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. That's what we're being told. The other thing I think we have to be careful of it is not to buy into sort of the panic mode of buying, as well as gas. I guess it was a run on gas because there was a worry. That as of now is not a concern. So I think we just need to be reasonable. We need to make sure that we aren't hoarding food unnecessarily, because that, there are some families that can't afford, right, to buy more than just what they need, for a short period of time. So be aware, be generous, be kind to those. So here's a question I think it's been asked a couple of times, and that is, how do you think Snow is going to be affected financially by all this? How would you respond to that?
So obviously, we've talked about housing refunds. I know that there was a question earlier that was answered about tuition refunds. That at this time we're not issuing refunds on tuition because that product is still being delivered. It's in a different delivery method, but it's still being delivered. So there are some things that are going to hit Snow financially. And President, we can delay this for the next section, but talking about the legislative session, the legislature was actually pretty good to us this year. And so there is some additional funding coming into the campus. Of course, not as much as we would like, but we do have means in order to keep business going. The lights are going to be on. The toilet paper is going to be stocked. So we do have means to get that done.
Well, let's talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about what talk about the legislative session, and then let's talk about the position on tuition, so that we have that, people kind of understand what we're sort of planning on next year. But like Carson said, the legislative session was a good legislative year for higher education in K-12. We were asking for a about $1.6 million from the state on a variety of needs that we have. And we didn't quite get that. It'll be less than 1.6, but pretty close, 1.4 or so, which will allow us to continue to meet crucial needs when it comes to advising and mental health, some key faculty lines, and with the technology that we need to continue to invest in, as well as some of the other sort of strategic initiatives. So I was very, very happy with that, and really, we're really super grateful for our legislators that have worked so hard for us. Representative Darren Owens, Representative Carl Albrecht, Senator Ralph Okerlund, Representative Francis Gibson, who's not even in our in our district, is watching out for us. Senator Evan Vickers, Senator Don Ibsen, Senator Keith Grover, Representative Mike McKell. I mean, the list goes on where people are watching Snow College and are very invested in our future. We will then, at a later time, talk to you about, while we didn't get everything that we asked for from the legislature, it does mean we're going to have to reprioritize some of those things, and so we'll let you know what some of the decisions are, so that we can start advertising for additional positions, because we're being hopeful here, right? We're going to need these positions next fall, because we're going to be up and going, hopefully, as business as usual. But so fingers crossed on that. So one question is, how should we support our local economy? Carson, how are you personally going to support our local economy?
Well, I'm still going to go to Walmart in the reduced hours.
Yes.
And buy food.
Keep your distance.
Keep my distance.
Yeah.
So I think that while some things have changed, obviously we need to practice social distancing. It's important that we still maintain our life here. If you want to go out and eat, and there are restaurants who are giving a delivery option or a drive-through option, that's still a possibility. Going to the library. I know that you've got to call and make an appointment, but they actually bring the books to you. So you don't have to go sorting through the library on things, the community libraries. And so I think that still getting out and trying to do those things that you do, even though it's an adjusted schedule, to do as much as you can, but still practice the guidelines from the CDC.
Yeah, that's a really important point, that that there will be life after this hopefully short-term interruption to our lives. And so this is an opportunity, in a way, to practice social grace, to reconnect with each other, even if it might be through virtual, through technology. This is, I think, one of the great sort of silver linings in this. I think we have an opportunity, really, to learn skills and actually, in some ways, come together. In a time when it seems like we're so divided in our world, we do have a very common enemy in this particular virus, and this is what humans do so well, is to come together, to problem solve, and to help each other, and to be conscious of each other. I think in some ways we can try to make lemonade, right, out of this big basket of lemons we've got right now. So there are ways in which we can, I think, continue to learn, and this could be a growth opportunity for us. There's a couple of additional academic questions, so we might bring you back, Carson. So let me bring back the provost and have him address questions that might. One question that came up early was about a mission. There's a student that wants to go on a mission, and the question is, what do they have to do? What advice would we give people that might be going on a mission after this semester?
Okay, so some of you who may have a mission, or it may be deferred, and so now you're thinking, your mission may be deferred or what do I do if I want to come back to college and, and these sorts of things. If you go onto our website and you notice under the registrar's office, there is a link there that will help you in terms of getting deferrals. And it's also under our regular admissions webpage as well. But we still support students. We want you to come back. We want you to eventually matriculate, come here and register as usual. So we can handle that. And there is information. If you would like individual help, you can call the switchboard and have them connect you with the registrar's office, and they can give you instructions for how you defer. We're getting a couple of other questions on welding labs. If you will go back and look in your emails, just a couple of days ago, your instructors on the Richfield campus in welding, machine tool, industrial tech, automotive sent messages to students on how they're going to be operating the labs. For right now, those labs are still going to be held, but there is a special schedule that they have set up because they're also going to be doing some work online. But you need to remember that the situation is very fluid and dynamic, and situations can change. So pay close attention to your emails that you get and your Canvas messages from your professors so that they know that. The same with meeting times. Right now, most professors are going to try to meet at the regular times that their courses meet, unless they have told you otherwise. So make sure you check your Canvas page for each class and see what your professor has there for you. We're still getting questions about is there going to be classes next year? There will be classes next year. We just don't know right now how things are going to go. The question was, well, the government has said now that there's an 18-month plan. Any good government is going to have an 18-month plan for a disaster. That's normal. We're not making any predictions of how long this thing is going to last. As was mentioned by the CDC last night, the Spanish flu lasted for 19 months. So I think they're just kind of going off of precedent and making sure that they're prepared as they should be. Unfortunately, we can't give refunds on tuition because it supports the program and we're still delivering courses. And so we want to make sure that you have a chance to continue in your courses as possible. But at this late date, with 2/3 of the semester behind us, it would be impossible to refund. Final exams, your professors are trying to figure this out. Most of them have sent you a message saying, we know how the next couple of weeks is going to work. We're not sure after that. That's because they're trying to keep things flexible in the event that they need to change. So they are going to, they will decide that. Some professors are going to change over to a type of take-home written assignment. Others are going to, use a remote testing system online called Respondus, but they will let you know how that is. And if you, again, a lot of these questions you should probably direct to your instructors so that they have a chance to let you know. Some people have asked, are we discouraging students to return after spring break? What we want you to do is we want you to communicate with your families and find out what's best for your families. In some cases, somebody mentioned yesterday to us that they come from a family where their parents are on a religious mission, so they have no home to go home to right now because their parents are renting their house. We understand that, and that's why we're trying to stay open and trying to accommodate. In a worst case situation, we may have to change that, but for right now, we're trying to do everything we can to accommodate students. And if enough students do go home, what we'll end up doing is we'll consolidate some of the housing so that we're moving to trying to consolidate students in buildings in a safe fashion, as safe as we possibly can. One student says that sometimes pass-fail systems do not transfer to other institutions. All of the institutions in Utah, including private institutions, do accept pass-fail. There are a few institutions in the country that I do know of that may not accept pass-fail. And on those situations, that's why we're going to try to keep with the grading system as much as possible, because we think that it is very difficult to graduate with a GPA if too many of your grades are pass-fail. But we don't perceive that that's going to happen, that there'll be too many like that. President, what have I missed here?
Well, one of the questions is, can we just, maybe it kind of comes back to, but a concern about how classes will work and how it works with Big Blue Button. And then is there a recording function on that? Because another question is that, is it possible that if a student, for whatever reason, can't be on Big Blue Button when the lectures actually happen, is there a recording element they can come back to?
There is a recording function, and each professor, when they begin their lectures, they will activate this button, which will record it. Again, it's going to take probably about 3 hours after the lecture is over, however, for that to be available for you to view, but it will be on there. There is some concern about the Big Blue Button breaking down. Some students have said, will our technical capability be able to hold on to these courses? And Big Blue Button has sent out warnings that they're worried about capacity, as has Zoom, as has all of these services. Last week, or early this week, excuse me, Big Blue Button did expand their capacity. And if some of you may have heard the report this morning on NPR that the State University of New York is using Big Blue Button, and it's successful. So that's an 8-campus system that's using it, and it's working well. However, with each day, there's going to be more universities and colleges that are going to be using Big Blue Button. So we have asked faculty members, in the event that there is a technical failure, to be considering other ways that we can deliver courses. Again, this is not optimal. We wish this wasn't happening. But the problem is it's not just with Big Blue Button. It's with all of these services that, whether it be WebEx, Zoom, any number of them that people have. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be supporting Big Blue Button along with Screencast-O-Matic, which is an asynchronous. In other words, it will not be live broadcast for faculty members to use through our teaching and technology centers. But faculty will have been told that they need to have backup plans in the event that the technology is not able to deliver classes the way that we want it to.
So one question is, are we expecting more students in the fall due to the economic recession or economic downturn? That's a really good question. The short answer is we're not sure how students will respond. Typically, if the economy is going great, typically then there are fewer students that go to college. And then the opposite happens when there's an economic recession. People then go back to reskill, and that's very possible that could happen. But given the fact that if we have to continue our social distancing, how enthusiastic people would be, especially traditional students, that really want a face-to-face. We're not sure how that's going to roll out. But we're very confident that Snow College, that we're going to have by fall a lot more online offerings, so that we can make sure that we can continue to offer the appropriate numbers of sections and the right types of courses, so that you can continue to stay on track for graduation. Question is, are we discouraging students from returning to after spring break? And I think the provost answered that. I think that needs to depend on your family situation. I think if you can stay home, probably that's best. But if you choose to come back, we welcome you. We'll make sure that you get the support that you need. Again, just a reminder, as we look at some other questions here, the dynamic and changing nature of this requires you to continue to check the web page, which is snow.edu/coronavirus. And let's see, so
Just one quick other reminder. Do you remember on Big Blue Button that those recordings are going to be on there for a limited time? Right now, they've given us so many days to be able to use that. But in the event of capacity issues, since it's a private vendor, it could be that they feel like they could only keep it on for a couple of days. So the sooner you view that, the better it will be for you. Do your best to stay on top of your coursework, and you'll feel a lot better about where things are going.
thank you, Provost, appreciate it. Josh, join me if you don't mind again, because there are some questions about, are there particular guidelines from working from home? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, so as far as asking employees to work from home, I think some of the questions were, are we encouraging people to to work from home, or is it on a case-by-case basis? At this point, I think we're really encouraging, if you have the capability to work from home, work with your supervisor and make sure you have the technology and the tools to be able to do so. And especially next week, those employees who still need to work as much as they can work from home, that's what we prefer. And then once students come back, some offices we will need to have, you know, people at windows and things like that to serve students. But again, as much as we can get people to work from home until we get through this crisis, we really want to encourage that. So if you feel like your work is something that can be done from home, we definitely encourage you to work with your supervisor, and Tina Pearson is helping us make sure that everyone has the tools to be able to do that. So absolutely, we want to encourage that as much as possible.
Yeah, and again, just to remind us that really the best information we have right now is that the next 11 days seems to be very crucial about flattening this curve. We're learning all kinds of interesting vocabulary, aren't we, John? Like, you know, like social distancing. That is going to be part of our vocabulary now. You know, you think about flattening the curve, things that we hadn't had to think about at all. But knowing what the cycles as they go through a population, like in Italy or Korea, Japan, and China, that there are very crucial periods of time in which we can flatten the curve, and this is one of them. And that's why we ought to take advantage of our spring break. That's why we ought to be taking a lot of precautions over the next 11 to 12 days. That will pay off for us in the long run. And as I understand what the CDC is explaining is that what we're trying to do is really limit the infections that come all at once, because then it overwhelms and swamps our healthcare system. But as we flatten the curve, what that also means is it's elongating the curve, and that's kind of what you want, because then we can handle those cases. Our healthcare system can handle those cases within the parameters that they have. But if it's above that capacity, this is where Italy is struggling right now, where they're working at 200 plus capacity in some places in Italy, which makes it very difficult or almost impossible to have the beds in the facilities for those that need it the most. One of the big concerns, of course, for our IHC colleagues is keeping our health professionals healthy. Because if our health professionals get sick, then that is a real vulnerability to our county and our state from being able to give help where they need. What else? We've got some questions related to financial aid, whether financial aid will be impacted. We don't see this impacting financial aid at all, particularly this semester. As information comes to us, or as it relates to summer and for fall, but we do not think there will be any disruption for financial aid. And who knows, there may be some additional help from the federal government to kind of help students go back to school, continue their education, so that we can keep our economy strong, or to bring our economy back to where it was. It's quite amazing what can happen in a matter of just 2 or 3 days. Who knew that just a week or two ago, we would have this kind of situation? One question again: should staff work at home during spring break or vacation? How would you respond to that? I think we've responded to that in some level. That
yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just work with your supervisor on that. Like I said, some departments we still need to get work done. It would be, I know our office and payroll would really like to take a vacation next week, but I know you all want to get paid on the 30th, so that's probably not going to happen. Really work with your supervisor. I would say to the extent people can just do vacation, that's probably going to be preferred, but really work with your supervisor. And then again, if you need to be here, we'll give you time in lieu since a lot of other people are going to be on vacation. Another thing that hasn't come up through the chat, but a lot of questions we've been getting in our office is, well, you're sending a lot of people home, yet you're still requiring some of us to be here. Are you putting us in danger? And what I keep telling people there is the spread of the disease is really exponential. So, the more we can get people working from home, or have students doing the work remotely, that doesn't just protect those that are at home. It really protects all of us, because it flattens the curve and it slows the spread. So we're really trying to find kind of that delicate balance of still getting the work done, still maintaining life as normal as much as we can, while still protecting everyone else as much as we can. So it's a very delicate balance, but it's one we're trying not to overreact on either side of that.
It's a good response. Really keep in mind that if we do have people that need to be here, just remember in terms of the social distancing, that's what we're trying to do, is actually just spread people away from each other so that we can slow this down. So it doesn't mean you're any more at risk being on campus if you're working here than if you went to the grocery store. But we're just trying to make sure that people aren't unnecessarily putting themselves at risk. And I think the fewer faculty and staff and students we have on campus, the better. But that course doesn't guarantee anything. You can go to Walmart, and that provides a certain amount of risk too. But remember that, again, COVID-19 is mostly worrisome to those that are of certain physical disabilities, respiratory challenges, that are compromised in some ways. You always have to remember that the vast majority of people who have and are tested for COVID-19 right now are getting better. They're going through, some hits harder than others, but remember, we not everybody who gets COVID-19, so be very patient and caring about those that will become tested positive for it. Let's not alienate people. Let's just be careful and be responsible. There is a question about, does Buster's Pantry have any toilet paper? Where do I get toilet paper? I don't have a question whether Buster's. I have an answer in terms of Buster's Pantry having it. Being told it does not have toilet paper. So where do you get toilet paper? Well, my sense is that the toilet paper craze, I think, is reducing. Every time I've been to Walmart, there's been sufficient supply there. And what's that? Oh, if it's a real concern, call the hotline 7200 and we'll have some folks help you out with that. What about last day to drop classes, Provost, to April 17th? And so that was a question that kind of came up. While we're waiting for some more questions, I want to continue to emphasize, I've been so encouraged at the care that that leadership on this campus has for your well-being. Your department chairs, your supervisors, all up and down the organization. We care about you. We want you to be safe. We want you to be. We want you to stay, practice good hygiene, practice social distancing, but also let's continue to be thoughtful of others and be compassionate. One question: do we have safety gear for cleaning crew?
Yeah, we do, and it is being distributed, given out as needed, and so our cleaning crew, right, they're working with their supervisors to get that equipment as needed. So yeah, we are taking care of them.
Just a reminder too about, there have been lots of questions about commencement, and this breaks my heart really, as almost as much as anything. the fact that we need to postpone commencement is very, very disappointing, I know, to many of you, because this is an opportunity where you can celebrate your achievements. And we will find a way in which we can recognize your achievements, but we're working through what kind of postponement that would mean. And this all depends, right, on what the summer looks like. You know, do we have an event in the summer that makes it difficult for some of you maybe to come back, or your families to come back? Do we do some sort of virtual commencement? That doesn't seem very satisfying to anybody. You know, do we essentially postpone till maybe December? You know, when we when we have a handle on this. But I want to just say we're so sorry that we won't be able to celebrate in the way that you had anticipated, the way we wanted to celebrate your academic success. There was a question about, does Buster's Pantry need donations? We're finding that out right now, and so why don't you sort of stay tuned on that question? It's a very generous and charitable question, and what we're finding is that a lot of students are being taken care of through our food services and through family and all of that. But we'll find out whether what kind of supplies are in Buster's Pantry. Just for those who don't know what Buster's Pantry is, this is a pantry in our student center that for those students that might be food insecure, that they're allowed to come in and be able to get the food that they might need. This is just one of those very unfortunate and sad facts about life for many of our students, is the economic realities, the financial stress that going to college has, as well as the economy bears down on some of our students. More might be drawing on Buster's Pantry, but right now we've had a lot of donations. We've been very lucky that we have a community that supports us so well. So thank you for all of that. What about hours for? There's a question about hours for the campus store. Does anybody know the answers to that? I know it's on the reduced.
10 to 3, Richfield and here.
So the answer is the campus store is open from 10 to 3 Monday through Friday, and that relates both to Richfield and to our campus in Ephraim. Back on the Buster's Pantry question is, we have a really strong relationship with Mount Pleasant, the Mount Pleasant Pantry, and that they have been helping us supply Buster's Pantry through this larger sort of collection agency in Mount Pleasant. So we appreciate our partners in that relationship. So Josh, what's on your mind, and what's your favorite color, and what's your favorite food? No, but
Blue and orange.
Blue and orange, of course.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to supporting employees, I think the final guidance we might start to give to people is first off, work really closely with your supervisor. That's usually going to be the best way to figure out, whether you should work from home, whether you need to come in, those kind of things. Your supervisor is going to best be able to guide you on that. And then, of course, if your supervisor has questions, our office stands ready to help work through that. So I would say that these things, they change frequently. And so the best way to work through it is constant communication, and then, as you mentioned, social grace, and just recognize, everyone's doing their best. And so if you do your best and you assume that other people are doing the same, then we'll get through this.
We're hoping that this kind of informal town hall or or campus forum is helpful. And I'd be interested in those that are listening, how often that you think this would be helpful to you, whether we do this once a week. We're willing to do this as often as you think is necessary. We're going to be updating those announcements on our webpage every day. But any suggestions on how often you'd like to hear from us? And if you don't want to hear from us, that's fine too. We probably understand that. But if you want to send us a note as to whether this has been helpful or not, let us know how we can be better at serving you. We really are here to help you succeed and to be safe. Looks like we do have some response on the Sanpete Pantry. The Sanpete Pantry, that there's going to be a mobile trailer that will be here tomorrow from 2 to 4 in the faculty lot. So those students and others that may feel a little insecure with food, know that there'll be a mobile unit here from 2 to 4 tomorrow in the faculty lot to help out with that. And in terms of anybody, in terms of the team here, any questions, anything else that you want to relay to our staff and our faculty and our students? We really appreciate those that are part of the Incident Command Center. We're so lucky, gang, I gotta tell you, having worked at a lot of different institutions, there just aren't any better, I think, people on the planet than Snow College in terms of their genuine and authentic concern about you and about our students. So I really want to thank my colleagues for all they do. They have been working so hard. My guess is in some of them in this room have been working on this 10, 12 hours a day as we try and keep up with the changing circumstances. We don't see any more questions, other than it does seem like people are feeling if this is helpful. Some have said, listen, doing this once a week probably is not a bad idea. So we will give you, online, or we'll send a message out about the next time we'll do this, maybe this time next week, but we'll make it a general announcement. Thanks again. Check our webpage, snow.edu/coronavirus. Continue to ask questions. Don't feel like you're alone. We want to make sure that we can be honest with you and that we can be transparent with you. But keep the questions open so that we can make sure that we're allaying unnecessary fears. What I'm finding is that a lot of people I speak to are very fearful, and fear does not really produce a whole lot that is that's productive. And if it's good information, then we do respond well. But often people are afraid with bad information, and we want to make sure that we're keeping you up to date on all of that. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating and checking in. Thanks for our IT staff for making this possible. Continue to take care of each other, take care of your families, and just know Snow College is part of your family in a sense, and we want to be as flexible and supportive as we can. So all the best. Stay healthy and safe.